This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Hey guys, this is a special segment of the Texas Fan Battle called The Fourth Quarter. We have a special guest. His name is Shatz, the Chief Analytical Officer of FTN Network, the creator of DVOA. And we have been talking about analytics a lot in the past couple months, particularly with CJ Stroud being historical quarterback. We've been talking about the fact that he's been throwing obviously only one interception. And a lot of fans use DVOA for fantasy purposes. But what I want to start with is why and how did you create DVOA? And let's just start there because there's a lot to talk about.
So I created it 20 years ago, almost a little bit over 20 years, actually. And it started with some ideas from The Hidden Game of Football, the book that came out in the 80s and then again in the 90s with a new edition. The basic idea of success rate, which is judging success on a play based on down and distance. But then I expanded upon that with the series of bonuses for longer plays and penalties for turnovers, and then compared every play to similar plays. Because, for example, you're a lot more likely to have success on 3rd and 1 than 3rd and 10. So just because if you're a running back who gets the ball a lot on 3rd and 1, doesn't mean you're better if you have more success. You're going to have more success than a running back who's constantly carrying it in bad situations. So we adjusted for that, adjusted for team, and then I've been working on it for 21 years to make it as predictive as possible. We just came out with a new version this year that's more predictive of the future.
You probably have heard the arguments about what caused the loss in Carolina last week. They are considered the worst team in football. They had their first win against us. And there has been a lot of discussion about why actually we lost. What can DVOA tell us about that loss? Can it actually indicate why we lost and what we should have done?
Well, for example, you can split things up into pass offense, pass defense, run offense, and run defense, and look at how good the Texans were in each of those areas. And I looked at it earlier today in preparation and then completely forgot just now. I believe the pass offense was good, but not great, right? Okay. Not as good as it had been earlier in the season. The run offense was awful. The pass defense was not good, but the run defense was very good. Right. So the problems in this game were basically the run, the pass offense wasn't as good as earlier, but mostly it was the running game and the pass defense. And those have been the problems for the Texans for most of the year, really, is the running game has done nothing. Their passing game in DVOA is, I think, 5th, which is incredible with a rookie quarterback. The running game is 30th. Right. Okay. So the running game is getting nothing. And then the other problem is the pass rush is good, but the secondary is just not covering well.
Now, does DVOA take into consideration how much zone that the secondary is in versus man?
No, we're just looking at what the results of the play are. You can then, if you have charting data, which I have from FTN data, right, which is part of the FTN network, you can split it and look at how teams do in man versus how teams do in zone. And maybe they're better in man, maybe they're better in zone, whatever. But I don't incorporate whether a team is in man or zone. It's just, are you successful on this play or not? And how does that compare to the average team in similar situations?
So with the analytic data that you have and by watching the game, if you could give your top 3 reasons of why we lost the Panthers game, what do you think those reasons are?
Don't let your running back block Brian Burns.
Okay.
Young just had more success completing passes than usual. The running game is not good. You end up with Stroud in a lot of 3rd and long and 3rd and medium because the running game just hasn't gotten yardage on the first couple of downs. But the Carolina only had 15 points. So it's hard to say that, you got crushed. It was one of those games that's kind of 50-50 and someone has to win it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for the Texans, it wasn't them.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I thought Stroud was good. He missed guys a couple of times, but guys made a couple of good passes. He had a lot of passes batted down. Does he usually have that many passes batted down?
No.
Yeah, there were a lot
really
in this
unique.
game. Yeah, right. Like a lot of those passes batted down. And then on the other side, like I said, it's the coverage. It's not the pass rush. Jonathan Greenard owned Ike Ekwonu to a ridiculous extent. Like the left tackle for the Panthers was bad in this game.
Yeah.
And Greenard was just destroying him. So, I mean, the pass rush was definitely getting it done.
Right. Okay. So one of my takes has been, because it's kind of different from, I would say, the majority of the fan base, because a lot of the fan base is blaming this on Slowick, saying that we should have ran less and passed more. And the perspective that I came out with this is that, the scheme obviously requires us to have a somewhat of a balanced offense between the run and the pass. You run it so you can set up play action, so you can set up those deep shots. But I also don't think Stroud was having his best game of the season. PFF, for example, he grades him as having the second worst game of his short career. And one of the things that I noticed is that, they set him up in situations where he should have connected at least 3 times downfield and didn't connect on 2 of them.
Yeah, he was off a little bit in this game. He was off a little bit in this game. The play calling, I mean, listen, it's a general problem, right? You have to decide, is there a way to improve the running game, or do you move away from it? Because if it's going to be as good as it is now, you need to move away from it a little bit, because it's just not getting you. You're going to have more success passing than you are running, even on like 1st and 10. The other thing about Slowick is I joked about don't let your running backs block Brian Burns, but that's like a whole like Shanahan family thing, where sometimes they end up with running backs and tight ends against top edge rushers, and it's not good. And I know that they end up like that, but I just feel like there had to be a better line call on that play that didn't end up with your running back blocking their best pass rusher.
I mean, I agree. I will say that I put a lot of blame on that on Dalton Schultz, because he was supposed to chip block Brian Burns, and he really didn't chip block him. And then that left 26 Devin Singletary basically
got crushed.
Because he got crushed with that. And then there was no chance for CJ Stroud to do anything but take the sack, because coverage was also good on that play. So I understand that. I will say, though, he's had success using wide receivers taking down edge rushers. So when we played the Steelers, we actually had John Mechie block TJ Watt effectively. Wow. We've had
congratulations on that.
Right. So like the thing is, like, when it's executed right, when you have the right chips and when and everything's going right, it actually works. And we didn't take a single sack in that Steelers game, and you had 2 powerful edge rushers. So to me, a lot of this was just poor execution. It wasn't necessarily the play calling, is that I don't think the team executed. I also believe that even though the defense did a great job, they also allowed Bryce Young to get 3 free first downs. And when you allow Bryce Young to get 3 first downs and you're playing a lot of zone, he's going to be able to move the ball. And not only that, on the last drive, when you had that penalty, we're never going to get the ball again after that first down. So they can just simply use their poor run game and just, kick the field goal. So the penalties, so we actually averaged 6 penalties per game. We had 10 against Carolina. And it really felt to me like the bye just screwed everything up from CJ's production.
Well, some fans of some teams feel the opposite. They love the bye. They feel like the bye gives you rest and the bye gets you better prepared. And, so there's evidence that the bye week works either way, right? Sometimes it looks like it's bad and sometimes it looks like it's good. I mean, some days you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed and the other team has a good game, and, what are you going to do about it? But I mean, my biggest takeaway as someone who's not watched the Texans very much this year, my biggest takeaway on this is you cannot run the ball. Just can't. I don't know if there's a way to improve it or if it's just, you just got to move away from it.
I mean, the reason why I have to disagree with you there is because that's kind of like the scheme, right? Like the Shanahan style scheme uses the run to set up the pass.
But it's just not working. It's just not working.
I agree with you there. It's just not working. I mean, the line up front isn't working. We're putting Titus is supposed to be right tackle. We have him at left guard. He's obviously not doing well. This is now going to be a fourth center coming up in this coming game, which we'll talk about.
Pass blocking has been good. ESPN has Houston 9th in pass block win rate, but 28th in run block win rate. It really is. Right. It's just the run. It's the run that's I'm not blaming Dameon Pierce for this. Like, it's the offensive line is just not giving them space. And he's faced a lot of guys in the box too. And as we go on and people realize that Stroud is good, they'll start moving safeties back and they won't face quite as many men in the box. So that should make things a little bit better for the running game, but I would run a little less.
So moving forward to Tampa Bay, this, in my opinion, it's going to be a very tough game. I think it's going to be actually tougher than Carolina. We have, in my opinion, a quarterback that sometimes he can just go insane. And he has great weapons with Goodwin and Evans. And they don't have a run game at all. They have been successful through the air. So they're kind of like us in that aspect and similar, where our run games are poor.
It's very similar. Very similar in that both teams are very bad running, and both teams have been very dependent on unsustainable success in third and long. Right? We have Tampa Bay as the number 1 third down team by DVOA. We have Houston as the number 2 third down team by DVOA. The difference, and the reason why I think Houston is rightfully favored, is first and second down passing. Right? The first and second down passing has been a lot better from Houston than it has been from Tampa Bay. Yes, Baker Mayfield has the good weapons, but frankly, Nico Collins is playing pretty well and Tank Dell is playing reasonably well. And, I think they'll need to hit deep shots. Tampa Bay is better against the short pass than they are against the deep pass. So Stroud will need to hit a couple of deep shots, but Houston is definitely the better team and should go in favored.
Okay. So your game plan is, I'm going to take as you saying that we should basically pass more, that we move away from the run and pass more. That's basically what from an analytics standpoint, that's what you would say?
Yeah, I will say when you run, if you look at directional running, you should run left end rather than right end, because the Tampa Bay defense is much better against right end runs and the Houston offense is much better at left end runs. But yeah, I mean, I think I would pass more, run less, make sure you throw in some deep shots because the Tampa defense is susceptible on those. They've been better at 11 personnel than 21 personnel. So, spread the field a little bit. And I realize that Woods is still out, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. And I don't know what the deal is with Mechie, how much he plays at this point. So, how often they can go 3 wide receivers, but I would try to do that if they can.
All right. Yeah, that's something that we haven't done a lot, but I actually agree with on that point because we should be putting Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Noah Brown out there quite a bit.
Yeah, Noah Brown, if it's not going to be Mechie, right? Mechie is still kind of specialized. Both Mechie and Jamison Williams for Detroit have just not – I mean, Mechie at least has a good reason. They just haven't been the guys that we wanted them to be when they came out of college.
Right. No, I agree with that. And all right, so – there's some other questions if I can go away from the Texans for a moment, is that some people want to know, for example, why you would have the Ravens ranked as number 1 versus
I know, right? Versus the Eagles, right? I mean, so the Eagles have a lot of close wins against bad teams. They have a couple of good statement wins, like beating the Dolphins, but overall, they don't have a lot of big dominating wins. The Ravens have big dominating wins. Like that Detroit game was so good. Detroit is a very good team and the Ravens squashed them. And they did it all in the first 3 quarters, right? It wasn't a lot of garbage time. So like, for example, when Miami put the 70 on Denver, 3 touchdowns were on long plays in the fourth quarter when the game was already decided and over. Right? So those are not as important, right? Like, that's not as important as like when you're still in the first 3 quarters and you're really in the thick of it. Not like the whole fourth quarter is always less important. I'm just saying, when you're winning by 20, it's less important. So Baltimore did it against Detroit all in the first 3 quarters, and it was fantastic. And they've just been really good this year. We have them with the number 2 defense, I believe, the number 4 offense, outstanding running game, Problems in the passing game, the drop passes and stuff, but our numbers think they've just been a fantastic team this year.
So, if I can ask you your prediction of who would end up in the Super Bowl, using that, all of your knowledge, including everything with all the analytics you have, what would your prediction be?
I still feel like what a lot of people feel like, which is that Kansas City is going to click in at some point and get it.
Okay.
So I think I would pick Kansas City out of the AFC and San Francisco out of the NFC. Now, I will say I had Buffalo before the season, but at this point, Buffalo's had too many defensive injuries to be any kind of favorite. They could still sneak in, but it's unlikely. They've lost too many good guys on defense.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at dynasty discussion if Kansas City gets it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what happens when you have the best quarterback in the game, right? I mean, this is the best defense that they've had in Mahomes' time there, and they still have Mahomes, and they still have Reed. So even though our numbers like the Ravens, I think, there's still that little bit of a feeling that the Chiefs are like, at some point it's going to click in for them, and then, if they have a top number 1 or 2 offense to go with the defense that they've played so far, they're super dangerous.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we learned a lot. I'd like to ask you what you would like to tell our viewers about any last words about DVOA, your website, or anything like that.
Yeah, where you find me now, because I'm in a new place this year, but it's ftnfantasy.com/DVOA. You can find all of our content there. The main DVOA numbers are free for the splits and the historical stuff. There's a subscription, Stats Plus subscription, or a Fantasy Plus subscription to FTN gets you that stuff. And you can also follow me on social media. I'm on both Twitter and Threads, Shatz NFL, ASCHATZ NFL on both Threads and Twitter.
Thank you, man. It was a really, really great discussion. I think we learned a lot. Guys, don't forget to check in on Sunday at 6 p.m. Central for the recap. Whatever happens between us and Tampa Bay, we'll be here to break it down. Thanks again, and go Texans.
You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.